Hey, this is Brent Jensen, and you're listening to No Sleep Till Sudbury, the show where we talk about the music that makes your skin vibrate. The show is brought to you by Pariah Pickups. What you want, what you need, what you love. Check them out at pariahpickups.com. And should you be looking for help with social media management or marketing promotions, have a look around at storyfora.com. Producers of all manner of digital promotion content, from video clips to podcast production and everything in between. Storyfora, that's PHORA.com. All right, he is back. The legendary Rik Emmett and I have a great chat at his home studio late last year to talk about a then upcoming project that's now here. I had to hold this episode and the next one back until it launched, but Rik's new project, 10 Telecaster Tales, will be available later this month, so here it is. I should also mention at this time that Rik and I will be doing something I've never done in the history of the No Sleep Till Sudbury show. We're recording 2 episodes in front of a live audience in Collingwood, Ontario later this month on Friday, March 21st. Rik will be playing songs, telling stories, and doing a Q&A with the audience. So if you want to be there, have a look at his Facebook page for details or send me a note at brent@brentjensenmusic.com for details. All right, here he is, the man himself, Mr. Rik Emmett. Rik Emmett.
Brent Jensen.
I am back. I'm back here in Eli's loft. It's so good to be back.
It's a nice place to be back to. I never have to leave, but you know, guys like you, I kick you out and then I let you come back. What has it been, a year?
Almost a year. So October was the last time I was here.
Okay.
Yeah. And the last time I was here, we talked about half of your project.
Not even the half of it, my friend.
No, I know. See, it's this huge thing now. So
it was grown. Yes.
When we were here last time, you played. So the plan, I believe, at that time was to have 10 songs, 10 Telecaster Tales.
Yes.
And the center of the project was a guitar that you had specially crafted for you, a Telecaster, of course. But now there is a book to accompany this project.
So, you know, the 10 Telecaster Tales, it just struck me that, well, why wouldn't I then write the stories about the 10 songs? And then I thought, well, you know, once I got into it, I go, I should set up some background here because the guitar is based on a Telecaster and it's in the title. And then I go, well, I guess there should be a little history about the Telecaster. And, you know, one thing leads to another. And before you know it, you know, there's 130 odd pages that are up and running and you're going, man, this is going to be something, you know. And then I go, geez, you know, in typical Rik Emmett fashion, you know, there's stories behind stories inside stories. And then I go, well, there should be some illustrations because it's tales. Tales kind of, it suggests fairy tales and you know, so we need illustrations. And so then I got a friend in Pittsburgh, Janine Leach, and she started putting some of these things together for me. And the next thing that happened was ECW, they got into it, publisher and my editor, Michael Holmes. And I said, what if we did like a hardcover version and we put the CD in it? And then that'd be the first thing that we market. But then the one that you guys want to put into Indigo and chapters and, you know, blah, that'll be like the paperback version. And we'll just get like, people can download the music off bandcamp.com. And they go, this is a great idea, Rik. And I go, yes, it is. It's a digital universe. We can keep folding stuff in. And I haven't even got to the best part.
Oh.
The best part is, so Babs the Telecaster, and I know you want to ask me about that.
Yes.
We're going to get there. But I have a relationship with Godin Guitars out of Montreal. And my friend Fred DeSanto there, I go, Fred, he says, we're going to do a Rik Emmett guitar. Would you still want to do that? I go, would I? I just designed a guitar and I've got this book coming out and this record coming out. Could we design a guitar that we could then add to this? And he went, oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect.
I went, okay, man. So now there's going to be a guitar. So not only will we have the book and the CD, but we will now have a guitar that ties into this whole thing too.
Perfect timing to accompany Babs. So Babs will have like a little sibling.
Yeah, it's going to be called Le Conteur, which is the storyteller in French, because it's a French-Canadian company.
Right.
And it's similar, not exactly the same, but all of the really functional things that I really wanted, which is to say, I started taking a Gibson Les Paul and marrying it to a Fender Telecaster. that's what's still going to happen. The storyteller will be like that, and it will look very much like Babs. You know, your listeners can't see, but it's a butterscotch blackguard kind of looking Telecaster guitar. And so Godin is going to do a butterscotch blackguard one, but they're also going to do a white on white, because on the racks to your right, all my guitars, I have a white Tele over there that I really, really like.
There it is.
And I kind of like the look of it. And white guitars are cool on stage. Said the guy that had white flying Vs and white double necks. And because when the lights turn red, the guitars turn red. When the lights turn blue, the guitars turn blue.
That's right.
So white is a really cool color to have on stage. So I'm going to have white ones and butterscotch ones.
Your very first guitar in 1971 that you bought, I believe, at Long and McQuaid at Young and Bloor, close to, right, in 71, before you became a working musician, was cream colored, and it was a Tele.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a white guard. It wasn't a black guard, but it was, yeah. And it didn't have a name. You know, I hadn't got to that age and stage yet of pontification. Giving everything a name, anthropomorphizing everything on the planet Earth in order to suit me and my stories. Yeah. So. But
how did Babs? So Babs is almost an acronym, right?
Yeah, it started out and it was I was calling it Butter because of butterscotch. I was thinking, that kind of suits it, Butter. And then I was thinking about Saturday Night Live, Mike Myers.
Right.
He used to do a character, Linda Richmond.
Yes.
Which was based on his mother-in-law. And she had this Barbra Streisand fixation. And she would always say, oh my God, Barbara, her voice is like butter. It's like butter. And so I started calling it Butter. And then I was going, Butter. And then I was going, wait a sec. It's butterscotch and blackguard. I go B-A-B, or it's, no, blackguard and butterscotch, B-A-B-S. And Barbra Streisand's nickname is Babs. And I went, it's got to be Babs.
Perfect.
It's got to be. So
perfect.
That's what it is now.
It's a good looking guitar.
She's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I always keep it plugged in and ready to go.
Wow.
And pretty much I only ever really use the neck pickup on it, so it has that kind of round, sound.
Well, an interesting thing that you say in the upcoming book is that the Fender Telecaster is the closest natural extension to an acoustic guitar in terms of how the strings sound and when you...
Yes.
Is that...
Well, the difference between my Babs and what a Fender Telecaster would be is scale length. So it's not quite the same, because usually acoustic guitars are 25.5 scale length.
Okay.
So I'm talking about the distance from the bridge of a guitar to its nut. So it's 25.5 inches on a Telecaster. Usually most acoustics are that scale length as well.
Right.
Not all, but most. And that's part of it. But I shrink it because I'm a little guy with little hands, just like Les Paul was. And Les Paul went, I don't want a long scale length. I want an easy, because it makes it a little more, I hate to use the word, but it's a little more buttery. It's a little more easy for your hand to handle when it's a shorter scale. So now, and there's been scale lengths even shorter. The Birdland that Gibson did, that Ted Nugent made famous for my generation, but
yes.
Hank Garland and a guy named Joe Bird, Billy Bird. Ooh, I can't remember. Anyways, Bird and Garland did this, and that became the Birdland.
Okay.
And it was 23.5 scale length. It was really short.
Oh, wow.
So it was a really comfortable guitar to play.
They had big bodies too, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Big honking bodies. Yeah.
Did they have F-holes?
Because that was the thing back in those days, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was making the transition from large arch tops to, how can we cut down on feedback? How can we, maybe solid bodies. And Fender was at the beginning of that. Les Paul was there too. But, I mean, he didn't design that body shape. Gibson had come up with that and then put out this Les Paul thing. And then, Les Paul was sticking his nose in and going, well, wait, I want this, blah, 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 blah. And they fixed it and changed it. And, I mean, then later they changed it to an SG style. And they called that the Les Paul. I can't remember what years, but I think it was like 60, 61, 62. Yeah. No, maybe not. There was 60s Les Pauls. So it might have been a little later. Anyways, they discontinued Les Pauls for a while, and they called these SGs Les Pauls. And then they went, that was a
Completely.
mistake. We better go back.
That's quite a different guitar, really, just even in terms of the weight and the thickness of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Angus Young, Tony Iommi, the SG.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I used to have double necks that were SGs. Gibson SG double necks. I had those.
I remember that.
Back in the day. But not when Triumph became really successful. Then I had switched. I had an Ibanez. And it was more of a burgundy wine color. If you look on clips on YouTube of the Us Festival show,
Yes.
that's the double neck I'm using there was an Ibanez. That was because Gil had a deal with FK, the distributor in Montreal that was an Ibanez distributor. So I got a George Benson guitar, I got the double neck, I got a Flying V in Carina. Yeah.
Would you have still had that back in 18 when we did the first show?
A Gibson double neck?
Yeah.
It's over there in the corner. Yes.
No, but
it wasn't the original. I got that one when I did the Sweden thing, 2007, 2008, in around there.
Okay.
Yeah. They gave me some Les Pauls and that double neck. Well, I'd had a white one back in the day. But the story about my white Gibson double neck was, it was a factory second, first of all. It had 2s stamped in the back of the head. So they still sold those in those days, but you could get them cheaper.
Oh.
And I got it used. But it was, if you leaned back, the guitar would go sharp. And then if you leaned forward and the next went forward, it would go flat.
No way.
Yeah. Like not a lot, but enough that it was like, this is a little fishy. So you had to kind of stand in one locked position to try to keep it in tune.
How terrible
and
would that
there's
be?
a thing you can do with the guitar. And all the guitar players are going to know this. You can play a chord like, and you can. I'm wiggling the neck right now, so you can hear a little bit of a kind of a warm vibrato.
Yeah.
Right. So on that Gibson double neck, oh my God, could I ever make that thing warm? Inadvertently.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the album has been worked out, right? All the songs are ready to go.
Yes.
Now the
mastered, ready to go. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the last time I was here, actually, when I left, Steve, who mastered the record,
Steve Skingley, yep,
he came in right after I did, just to work on your computer,
right,
to get the whole process started.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he was not available when I wanted to start tracking, because he was moving, and he lived in Oakville, and he moved up to Wasaga Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So, I said, okay, well, I want to get started. So your old friend of mine, Blair Packham,
yes,
he had sort of said to me, yeah, man, a couple of my gigs fell out, and he was kind of scuffling around. And I said, Blair, you want a job? You want to become an engineer? And he went, I would love that. So it was great. And engineering with Blair is much like doing interviews with you. Like, we spend more time talking, and shooting this than we do, actually recording. But I love Blair. He and I have been doing the song studio for years, and then he took it over. Mm. I have a kind of an affinity for Blair and his personality and his character, and he's a terrific engineer. He'd had all those years at Master's Workshop, and so Blair knows his stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then literally my rig, which we're sitting here, and I've got the Mac and the whatever Pro Tools, and eventually Blair's going, you know what? I'm going to bring my own laptop. Like, my software is better than yours. I go, well, that's I don't update every year, so my software is now very much out of date. And Blair was bringing in his own laptop and his own software and his own mic preamps, and So
you did it here.
We did it here.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, he's a great guy, Blair.
Yeah.
He's been on the show a bunch of times. He actually invited me to his house once for his birthday.
Uh-huh.
And that was where I met Chris Tate from Chalk Circle.
Yeah.
Stan Meisner was there that night.
Yeah.
Stephen Stanley was there that night. There's a ton of people. And it was great. It was he's almost like he's a connector of people.
He is.
Totally.
Like, the latest Blair story I can tell you is he sends me a text or an email or something and says, would you like to throw out the first pitch for the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team season? And I go, what? Where's this coming from? How do you know those guys? He goes, well, I know a guy who knows a guy. And so I went, yeah, okay, Blair. And so a couple of days later, I'm at CHCH TV doing some sort of a promo thing for some other thing, and I run into Rod Black.
Oh, wow.
The guy,
Yeah,
and
TSM.
Rod Black says, I hear you're throwing out the first pitch for our ball team. I go, your ball team? What's happening here? And he goes, yeah. He says, I'm a partner. There's 3 guys.
Oh.
And so I went, oh, okay. And then he said, yeah, you're going to throw it out with Wendell Clark and Rick Vive. And I go,
perfect.
Oh, I thought I was throwing it out by myself. So now this thing that Blair got me into, it's getting watered down a little bit. Like, I thought I was going to have the spotlight all to myself, but no, I'm going to have to share it with a couple of actual Toronto Maple Leaf guys. And I'm going, well, nobody's going to give a crap about me. So anyhow, but Blair, he said, Rick, I'll come and pick you up. I'll drive you because I have this thing about driving, right? I can't, especially into Toronto, which has turned into just a.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah. So I said, Blair, they still play at Christie Pitts, right? Like up at Christie and Bloor? He goes, yeah. I go, ooh, I can't. He said, I'll come pick you up. We'll make a day of it. It'll be great. And so he did. He chauffeured me down and walked me up there. And now he didn't walk to the mound with me. I did that with Rick Vive and Wendell Clark and their accountant and their bookkeeper. And they had cast of thousands. They had a bagpiper bagpipe us in as we walked across the outfield and up to the thing. And then we threw the first pitch finally. Paul Godfrey threw one. Oh. Because one of his sons is one of the owners of the team.
Okay.
So, yeah, his hit the ground and rolled in the grass, didn't make it, Mine nearly went way over the catcher's head. He had to make a giant leaping stab. Clark threw a completely perfect strike. Of course he did. I think Vives might have bounced.
No way. Really?
Yeah, he threw it hard. But I think it might have hit the ground. I don't remember. I wasn't watching them. I was watching mine sail over the catcher's head.
Well, better than that than it bounced, that's for sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't. You know the old story of, it was Bush, I think, George Bush. He was going to throw out the first pitch at a Yankees game. Yeah. And he's got the jacket on and he's in the dugout and he's got the ball in his hand and he's walking past Derek Jeter. And Jeter says to him, the president, you're here to throw out the first pitch. He goes, yeah. He says, I'm looking forward to it. And he goes, just don't bounce it. And he goes, what? Bush goes, what? He goes, this is Yankee Stadium, sir. If you bounce it, they're going to boo you. Really? And he goes, oh, good to know. Good to know. Now, Bush was a bit of a jock, and he was the owner of the Texas Rangers, right? At one point. So he was a baseball guy, and he did throw a strike.
Didn't get the Bronx cheer.
No.
Oh. So that's funny. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the book now. You've always been a storyteller, and there's a great line in the book. I'm going to read it here. It says, as tales tend to do, they offer obvious revelations about the teller himself. I like that. Some people say, we were talking earlier, and I was telling you that I've been reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act or The Creative Way of Being or whatever. And he's a bit of a Buddhist guru kind of dude. He does talk about, and he's not the only one that's ever done it, but the idea of an artist is on a journey of self-discovery, and you are revealing things about yourself and the way that you see the universe. Mm-hmm. And that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. So there is another metaphor, of course, that's, like the artist is like an onion, and you keep peeling away the layers until there's nothing left, but there's a lot of tears. Yeah. So. That's good. So I think it's fantastic that you have developed this book now to speak for the music. We've had this conversation in a couple of different ways a lot of times where you say, you know what, I hope that I can get this sentiment and this authenticity out to people. I hope they get it. I hope they value it. And I hope I do a good job delivering that. And you talk a little bit about that in this new book, and you use vibe to describe that, right? Yeah. Resonation, there's lots of ways you could describe it. Yeah. You make music, it's sound waves. They move through the air, and that's what you're hoping that you'll connect through space. And emotionally that's the first connection. You're just hoping that people will have some kind of a visceral kind of connection to what it is that you've done. And then an intellectual one may come a little later in the process. But, the whole thing of being an artist on any level
is there's probably that thing of just, I hope they like me. I hope I'll be accepted, you know. When I was a kid in grade 9,
Yeah.
which I was thinking about this, is your son going into grade 9 or is he going 9 to 10?
8, going into 8.
Oh, going into 8,
Yeah.
okay. So that's a pretty, like 13.
Mm.
When I went to high school, I was 13 years old because I'd accelerated a year. And I went into this high school where there were guys that were shaving twice a day.
Twice a day.
In my class, grade 9, you know, like.
There's always that one kid, right?
Well, not one. There was 4 or 5, you know. Yeah. And the girls were not girls. They were like women, you know. And I was going, oh, no. Like, I was so. And I'd gone to a high school where I knew no one. Because all of my grade 8 friends had gone to either Humberside Collegiate or Western Tech in Toronto. Okay. And they changed the boundaries and I had to go to Bloor Collegiate. I knew no one. So I'm in grade 9 and what have I got going for me? A little 13-year-old, pimply, goofy kid. And it was that I could be witty. I could be quicker. I could be funny. And that's what started to happen. And that was my identity, which was class clown, sort of. But I was too smart to be a class clown. I wasn't like a David Lee Roth, you know, I want your
Carnival
attention.
worker.
It was more like, I just want people to like me. I want people to think I'm clever and that I'm funny. And it worked.
Yeah.
You know, like it made me likable. So back to your question. Why do you make music? Well, you kind of hope. If you ask Jeff Beck, why do you play guitar? Well, so I can get girls.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to make yourself attractive in some way, shape, or form to other people so that they'll go, yeah, you're cool.
You know, we were talking earlier, this is your 6th time on the show. So we've done this 6 times together.
So I've probably given you all of these answers.
Just in a different way. We just
And
keep
now,
saying the same
cue the answers to the questions from 19. No, okay.
No, but you know, you've always said to me, and you've said it off mic too. You've said, you know, I remember the first time I was here, actually, you said, you know, I hope that your listeners like this. They probably won't because they're younger or something to that effect. Yeah. And I said, no. It's going to be the opposite. They'll be very interested to hear this. You're playing a little bit. You're sharing insights. There's a lot of Rik Emmett fans out there. And I thought, as this went on, you're very humble. But I thought, like, when Rik Emmett was younger, when he was like Rik Emmett playing the Forum in Triumph, did you have that in the back? Were you always like, I hope people like this? Or were you like, people are going to love this?
I was both, you know, and of course it becomes a question of, well, yeah, but which one is dominating at any given point in time? And of course, the period from about, I would say, I mean, even back in high school, there was a part of me that was this cocky, testosterone-driven kind of kid that was like, I'm never going to die.
Yeah.
I'm going to win every race I'm in. I'm going to play football and never get hurt. I'm going to write a song and it's going to be the greatest song ever. And that's, you're young and this stuff is just coursing through your system, making you feel like, but there's an also, you know, you're lying alone in your bed at night and you're going, well, maybe I'm a pimply, skinny little, you know, like you always have the other side, you know, it's just which one's dominating in terms of a public thing. So then my career starts and it's going not bad, but things are happening pretty good. And of course, Triumph, even though there were times in it where it seemed like, this is disaster and we're going nowhere and it'll be over in 4 months. Nope, kept climbing right back up off the carpet, and it was a cat that had 9 lives, and it was like, no, oh my God, we've got a new life. Oh, it's a bigger life. Oh, it's a greater life. And so all of a sudden you realize, no, I'm on a roller coaster ride, and everything that seems like clank, 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 oh no. The next thing you know, you're over the top, and oh, here we go again. And it's like, so that was what was happening in my life through my 20s and into my 30s, you know. And good things are happening. I'm partnered up with these guys that are smart and they're way more worldly about business and money than I am. And I'm learning at the feet of the masters, you know, and we're building a studio and, we're putting together one of the biggest touring rock shows. And so it's like, wow, I am awesome. Yeah. You know, there's a part of you where you're going, I'm great. But there is another part of you where you're going, not so sure about the songs this band writes. And when I bring songs down, I'm having a hard time trying to get them to see what it is that I would like to try and do with these things.
Right.
They've got their own way of doing things, and a band is a democracy, and I'm not sure I want to be in a democracy anymore. I think I'd rather be running my own benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah.
Then you start to have doubts. You start to look in the mirror and go, wait a second. And then, as life starts catching up to you later on, you're having kids and your parents are getting sick and, somebody gets cancer. And, these kinds of things start happening in life where humility is going to impose itself upon you. If you have any kind of a thinking brain,
right.
You're going to realize, wait a sec, life is a give and take thing, and it takes. So you have to be willing to say, that's all right. You do need to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have this sense of, and again, Rick Rubin, we'll come back to that since I've been reading the book. He talks about clean slate. He talks about, once you've done something, then you have to sort of clean the slate and say, yeah, but now I need to look at it again as an artist as if I've never seen it before. And how does it measure up? Because there's going to be ideas that are not that good. You're going to have to leave them behind. Or an idea is, it's getting good, but then you've made a mistake. Well, you got to go back and you got to clean the slate, and then you got to figure out, where did I go wrong? How do I fix this? I'll tell you a story. I had a friend, Andy Baracus, in high school.
Okay.
He was a very good chess player, and I wasn't. And we used to smoke a joint and sit down and, we're going to play some chess. And he would go, Rick, you don't want to do that move. You're going to lose your bishop, or, you don't want to do that. In 2 moves, I'm going to give you a check. And so then we would play a game. And then when he would get me in check, I would say, okay, walk me back. Where did I go wrong? And we would walk the game back, and he would say, you shouldn't have done this with your, whatever, castle pawn. You opened it up in a way that, you were giving me. And I went, oh, okay. So let's go back and let's start the game from there, and I'll make what would be the smarter move. Mm-hmm. And it's how I learned how to play chess, because we could always back it up to where I'd gone wrong. And so I think humility has to be something like that. You have to be looking at your life and going, hey, I made a mistake. You're not going to take a gun and put it to the side of your head and go, you go, how do I go back and fix it? How do I try to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my working theory in any case.
No, that's great insight. Very gracious of him too, isn't it?
Of who?
Of your friend to show
Andy.
you.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was smart enough that he was going to beat me again and again and again and again. It's like he was that good. Yeah.
You know what? When we first met, I remember you don't know what you're walking into, right? So to your point about humility just kind of comes in. Sometimes it doesn't come in for everybody. Sometimes ego takes over and you take the other fork in the road, which is just being a crotchety old, egotistical, grumpy old man.
Yes.
It was nice to know that you had a measure of humility to the degree that you do. But I wanted to tell you that sometimes, and I listened back to the old shows, I think that you might underestimate yourself a little bit.
You're not the only person that says that. And in fact, the first draft of the book that I did, my editor said, you're too self-effacing. And since you've seen the draft that I sent you, I had to go back and I had to take out some of the self-effacing, humble pie eating kind of stuff, because it was just too much. I'd had a guy, I'm not going to remember his name, and that's terrible, but we had another editor who was looking at the book from the point of view of, did I get my musical reference things right? So from theory and harmony, did I get those things right? And he had a couple of suggestions, how I could, clarify things, blah, blah, blah. But he, unbidden, unasked, said, when I was going through it, he says, you don't give yourself enough credit. You kind of, it seems an awful lot of, self-effacing kind of humility. It gets a little thick. And I went, oh, well, I wouldn't want people to think that it's false humility, because it's not.
No, God, no.
It's just a kind of a healthy, in my opinion,
yes,
a healthy dose of, well, this is how I operate, and I'm just being honest. And then my editor's going, yeah, maybe a little too honest. Okay,
Well,
because, it's like, you remember the Simpsons?
yeah.
Marge Simpson at one point was going to be a lawyer. She was studying to be a lawyer with the
don't
guy
remember that one.
who was voiced by, the Saturday Night Live guy.
Oh, McClure.
And he would play the lawyer. He would voice the lawyer.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name now.
But Troy McClure was the character, I think. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And he would be the lawyer with that voice.
Yeah.
And he was also Troy McClure. And,
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could remember his name. Anyhow, he was the actor that his wife shot him.
That's right.
In the end, he was killed.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he's trying to train Marge to be a lawyer. And he goes, no, but Marge, there's the truth and there's the truth. And, with his eyebrows go up and his head goes sideways and nods. There's the truth and the truth. And so here's my editor going, no, but Rik, what we need is the truth. Yeah, all right, okay. I won't be so honest. All right.
Well, there were glimpses. You and I had we're talking about Allied forces, and we're talking about fight the good fight. And you said, and it was so nice for me to hear this. You said, you know what? I get out in the tag of that song. Like, I get up there, like probably about as high as Geddy Lee gets up there. I can get up there. And I was like, yeah, you can definitely.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And for me, that was very uncharacteristic for you to say, maybe, but like it was cool.
No, but I've had moments, a story that I've shared in other places, but we opened for Journey at the Rose Bowl in 1983.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The backstage was something to behold because those guys were they were selling 70,000 tickets to the Rose Bowl. They were and 68,000 of them were young women that were, waving their arms in the air like they just didn't care to na, 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 like they were at their peak.
Oh, yeah.
The bass player, Ross Valerie, was walking around with his arm around Angie Dickinson as his girlfriend. And I thought, wait, wasn't she hooked up with Burt Bacharach?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
She's a policewoman.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was California, right?
Yeah.
And so I run into Steve Perry. And he, I think we finished our set. They haven't started theirs yet. And he comes to me and he says, were you singing high D's and E's? Because we Never Surrender would be like the chords. It was in the key of E minor. And it would be like, and I would be, that's a high E, F sharp, G. And I would sing it on stage every night. And Perry went, you're hitting those notes? I went, yeah. And he went, man, that's impossible. That's impossible.
Way.
I go, oh, Steve, what a sweetheart guy you are. Thank you. But yeah, but the thing
is a great story.
Well, but the truth of it is, in some ways, when you do that, you're not making yourself more commercial. You're making yourself less. Like, it was like this thing of, see how high I can go? And it was like, yeah, but so what? Steve Perry could go high, but there was a pure quality to his voice when he was singing his high B's, C sharps, so he's down around here, like, don't stop. I'm trying to think of the tunes, Don't stop believing, that feeling, that's where he's around.
Okay.
And I'm, and it's like that whole, like Mariah Carey thing where she can go into this head tone that's an octave up. It's this bizarre falsetto-y kind of thingy that's like, I don't know, birds chirping. Like the dogs around the neighborhood are starting to go, oh, come on, you're hurting me, Mariah. Knock it off, So, yeah, you're showing off. But maybe that's not necessarily the best thing for the song, for the music, for your average listener, for a radio format, all of these kinds of things. And I think in some ways, Triumph, I was maybe making a mistake. There'd been this world that I'd grown up in where it was like, oh, Robert Plant sings so high, and it was like, yeah, and now Geddy's going to sing high. Yeah, Geddy he was not a Robert Plant guy so much as he was Steve Marriott,
right?
The guy from Humble Pie.
Yes.
But again, high singers. And this was the thing. It was like, how high can you go? but it wasn't necessarily in the long run. Like Robert Plant doesn't sing like that anymore.
No, God,
no.
no.
And it would be stupid if he did. It would be unseemly. So, I don't know. Times change, right? Tastes change.
Mm-hmm.
Genres change, so.
Voices change.
Yeah. And also sensibilities change. So, what was something that you might have egotistically thought, oh, I'm cool, I'm great. And then, you get to 71 sitting here in a room with Brett Jensen and you're going, yeah, that was kind of stupid. that wasn't very bright.
Well, that's just one of the beauties of being young,
Absolutely.
Truly.
Right.
I mean, you're kind of afforded the permission to be stupid, right? And act like an idiot.
To wear incredibly tight pants.
With a glove on them sometimes.
Yes, there was that. Yes, I know. Oh, so I'm talking to... We could talk for hours and hours, and I could just keep telling stories. Dave Breckles was the drummer in Justin Page. Okay. So, for your listeners that don't know, that was like first kind of rock band that I played in, toured in, did an album with, and Breckles was the drummer. And Dave calls me up, and this week we're talking, stories about the old days and blah, 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 right? And so I had gone and auditioned with another guy named Glenn Stewart. Okay. And Breckles said, I read that in your book. He says, I didn't remember that. And I said, no, we came as a duo because I think he felt like it might maybe reinforced his bid if he brought along this guitar player guy that was maybe going to be pretty cool and going to get the gig. And he goes, yeah. He says, yeah, I remember that. He goes, but you were the new guy. You're still the new guy. I go, no, of course I was. He goes, you know what? I remember how that changed though. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, when we were doing wardrobe, and then you came up with this idea of the hand on your crotch with the costume, with the thing. And he goes, idea? You went from being new guy to being band favorite.
The guy.
Because Justin, the singer and his managers, Blair James and Frank Angelo, it was like, oh, this guy, he buys in. He's buying into the program. Because there were other sidemen in the band that were going, oh, I don't want to wear the makeup. I'll wear a suit, a funny suit, but I'm not gonna do anything like a costume. That's too weird.
Right.
But I was going, costume, I'm in.
That is so funny.
Stuffed white glove on my crotch. Sure, no problem.
You had two of them.
Yeah, I had two. Because 2 sets.
That's right.
And you'd sweat up the first set. And then I would go, I don't want to be wearing something damp the rest of the night. I'll change into my second glove.
Perfect. That's so fun. See, and going full circle, I didn't know that story. And Blair said, when you go to Rick's house, ask him about the pants with the glove on them. And I was like, what? And then I did.
Somehow, here in Eli's Loft, I'm going to have to get one of those pictures blown up and have a big picture of myself with the glove on my crotch. It was for your listeners that had, but I've told the story before, but maybe there's somebody listening here in the 6th year that didn't catch years 1 through 5. My aunt had a pair of white leather women's like cocktail gloves that went all the way up past your elbow, like dress gloves. And she wasn't using them anymore, and it was like, we need this costume. And I'd seen David Bowie, and he had a costume where there were 2 hands coming around and holding his breasts, sort of. And I thought, oh man, you could have one coming through your crotch hanging onto your package. And I went, and so I said to my aunt, can I have the gloves? And she said, oh, I think maybe she even volunteered, said, hey, you know what I've got? So I've got some white. So then we took like a hanger, like a wire hanger, and I bent it so that it would have, 4 fingers and a thumb. And then we stuffed it with foam so that it would have, it would look like a human hand in 3 dimension. And then my mom and my aunt sewed snaps on the inside so that one of the fingers, the middle finger, the middle of the palm, and then back up the arm, those would snap onto the clothes. Because you got the clothes dry cleaned, but you couldn't dry clean the leather glove. You had to, I'll be able to take it off.
So your mom, and she was down with this. She was okay.
It was showbiz 101, right? My family was happy to be getting me into show business.
Oh man, that is so
True
funny.
Story.
I love that. Okay, so at some point we are going to play some music.
Yeah.
So maybe what we should do now.
It'll be better if I play it all at once.
Oh, okay.
So as opposed to breaking it up. And
I was going to say that. So because we did that on the last, we always do a 2-parter. So what we'll do, and this will be the first part, and then the second show will be focused on the music. Yeah.
In the book, I am fairly forthright about the fact that I had to edit. I couldn't play them stem to stern without, I'm trying not to swear. Yeah. So much for that. Blair would have takes where I'd be playing it like ding 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 clank ding 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 off.
That's funny. Well, there's on the show you do that and you go which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, there's old jazz guys like Elvin Jones. You can hear him groaning while he's playing, right? And Glenn Gould, like you can hear the stuff, and it's like,
wow.
Yeah. I do think when you perform music, I think you have to commit 100%, like everything. So I don't see anything weird or unusual in a musician kind of playing along and making noises while they're playing. And a lot of the good musicians that I've played with, especially drummers.
I was just going to say, you see that in clips of drummers like vocalizing their bits, right?
Yeah, because it really is 100% kind of full engagement.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell singers, you don't sing just with your throat or just with bring it from the balls of your feet.
Yeah.
Everything has to commit. I want every follicle in your scalp committed to what you're doing here. You got to be into this.
Yeah.
I think singing teaches people that, as a singer. Other instrumentalists, not so much. And here's the other side of it. When I was a kid playing violin in the high school orchestra.
Mm-hmm. Violin?
Yeah.
Wow.
4.5 years of it. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was one hanging on the wall over there.
There it is.
Here in Eli's left. I never touch it. I could never sound good. Like it sounded like I was always torturing a cat. That's what it sounded like. So Hans Gasteiger was our conductor.
Wow.
Yeah. He wasn't like this, but he was a serious musician. And he would come over, and if I was tapping my foot, he would put his hand and say, "Don't do that." And I would go, "No," but he goes, "No, you don't want to distract from the music. You don't want any part of your body. Don't make faces. Don't rock. Don't tap your foot. Don't do anything except play the music. That's all you should be doing."
Really?
Yeah. And it was like, oh, and I've seen master classes of Segovia. There's a famous clip. I tried to find it once and I couldn't, but I remember seeing it where the guy's sitting playing in front of him, and Segovia goes, "What is this thing you have on your finger?" And the guy goes, "I'm sorry, maestro." He goes, "What is this thing you have on your finger?" He goes, "It's my wedding ring." "No, you should not have when you are playing. There should be no distractions when you play."
Wow.
And I go, "Holy shit." That's pretty serious. You got to take your wedding ring off to play guitar, Now, I wear wedding rings on both hands.
Oh.
And they do clink and clunk occasionally.
Okay. I didn't even notice that. Wow.
Yeah, the European and North American.
Wow.
No, it's because I actually have 3 wedding rings. The first one that we gave each other, my wife lost hers in the Gulf of Mexico when we were out swimming. And she comes out of the thing and she goes, oh no, I've lost my wedding ring. So then she had to get another one made. And then I got her another one later. And when I started making a lot of money, I got her a really nice ring. And so then this whole thing of sort of getting new rings. And so on our 25th anniversary, when we were in New York on a real tourist week on our 25th anniversary, and we went to the top of the World Trade Center. This was in July. Mm-hmm. And then later that year.
Oh, no, really? It was that year?
Yeah,
oh, God.
But we went on, there was a museum store on Fifth Avenue or one of them, Avenue of the Americas or something. I think it was Fifth Avenue. Mm-hmm. And we bought gold posy rings, which say, "Vous et nul autre," you and no other, on the band. So French posy rings from the 18th century. And then we went all the way down Manhattan to the oldest Anglican church in all of North America. We sat in the back. They were having some kind of a service. and we exchanged vows again, and
Wow.
we gave new rings. So that's why I have two.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jeez. I'm learning so many things.
Oh, there's a story for everything.
Plus the accent that you just did. The hidden talents of Rik
Oh,
Emmett.
Segovia?
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's like spot on.
Oh, well, he did have that kind of very thick sort of, it was very stretched Spanish, But, yeah. No, I'm pretty good at doing voices. My mom's side of the family is Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can do a fairly good brogue.
Wow.
Like I can do that Scottish thing fairly good. And my father's side is English. So I can do a variety of English ones,
Jeez.
And of course, Emmett is an Irish name. So Irish, I can do that as well. A little bit of that.
Unbelievable.
So I was pretty good at voices. Yeah.
Wow.
I could have had a job, I think, as those kind of voiceover folks that do cartoons. And
Yeah.
I think I probably could have done some things, But
Certainly you could have. I wanted to tell you something really quickly before I forget. So this thing about focus only on the music and don't tap your foot.
yeah.
Very interesting little fun fact about Blackbird, Paul McCartney. I know you're a huge Beatles fan. I don't know if you knew that when he was playing Blackbird on his own, when they were in Abbey Road, the White Album, it was like the sound of the Beatles breaking up, basically, right?
Indeed.
They were off on their own. McCartney was off on his own, and engineers would come in and record them. So as he's playing, you can hear a tapping,
Yes.
and it sounds like a metronome. It's not.
I know.
You know what it is, right?
Well, there's clips on YouTube too.
Oh, really?
So yeah, tell your listeners that they can find the clip on YouTube.
The engineer came in and put a microphone beside his foot
Yes.
to pick that
A
up.
piece of wood too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was wearing like hard shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was tapping on the wood, and they put a mic down there so they would be capturing that. Yes.
So that's the other side of that argument, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a big difference between rock and roll
Oh, of course.
and
Yeah.
classical music, and there's an old school vibe to the way classical folks approach what it is that they do.
Mm.
And they have a deep reverence for the music that they make,
Mm-hmm.
which I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I grew up at a time when rock and roll was the main thing. That was more like, why do you have to be so stuffy? Why do you have to be, why do you have to be so full of yourself and your rules?
Mm.
That like rules are made to be broken, and don't trust anybody over 30. And
Right.
To add to your story, McCartney had a house that was only about a block. He was living only about a block away from Abbey Road,
Mm-hmm.
so he could walk up there, and so he would often get studio time. He would show up early in the mornings. McCartney had a work ethic that those other guys did not share.
Right.
And that consequently, there's all kinds of stuff now. You can find McCartney sitting with an acoustic guitar and singing, "The day breaks, your mind aches, you find you know." And he's just all by himself singing
Yes.
it and saying to George Martin, "So George, should I do it again? Is that all right? Is that a good enough demo?" He was that kind of workaholic.
Oh, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
And the other guys didn't like it. In the end, it was driving Harrison crazy. Why do we have to do what you say? Why are you the boss?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Lennon, too. He hated when Paul was by himself recording. He didn't like that when there were no other Beatles present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I think John always maybe felt it was his band, right? Like Johnny.
Being older.
Johnny and the whatever it was. I can't remember. The Silver Beatles or something.
The Quarrymen. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was like whatever. But
The Silver Beatles.
It was Johnny's band, and he decided, well, I'll get McCartney in.
Yes.
Because he saw the value that this fresh-faced, young, incredibly talented guy had. Like, oh man, this is going to be great. I'll be able to use this for my climb to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got to the top and he realized, oh my God, this guy's going to maybe even have a more successful career than I'm going to have.
Yes.
The Beatles is turning into his thing, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, well, I'm going to find Yoko. This is my interpretation of things, but.
Oh, well, we could do a separate show on just the Beatles alone.
Oh, we could.
Okay, so, geez, what have we done here? We should probably find our way back to 10 Telecaster Tales.
Okay, why not? Sure.
Here's what we'll do. We'll end here.
Okay.
And with the promise of actual playing coming in the next show. How
Excellent.
about that? So we'll go through, we've talked about the book quite a bit. We might talk about it a little bit more, but what we will do is focus on the songs that the book is based on the next show. How about that?
Excellent. Yes.
All right. So we're going to take a little break, two-parter, as we are known for now.
Okay.
And we'll be back. So thank you very much for listening, folks. This has been No Sleep Till Sudbury with Brent Jensen and my very special guest, live from Eli's Loft, Mr. Rik Emmett. Till next time, folks, take good care.
Brent Jensen is the best-selling author of No Sleep Till Sudbury, Leftover People, and All My Favorite People Are Broken. All titles available in stores and on Amazon worldwide.